Good evening, friends. We are going to travel back to the 14th century. This time, we will not be knights or noble ladies, but an unnamed figure who left no mark in the historical record. A maidservant in an English country manor. Imagine trying to explain your smartphone to her. She would very likely think it was a magic stone. And to be honest, she would not be entirely wrong. So before you get ready to relax, give this a like and hit subscribe. Of course, only if you genuinely enjoy my content. Your support matters far more than you might imagine. As we begin, I would love to see you leave the name of your city and the current time in the comments. Now dim the lights, and with the sound of the bell, let us step into tonight's story. Before dawn breaks, what wakes you is not light, but a sound, a sharp, brutal, unquestionable cry. It is like a rusted awl, piercing cleanly through your brief, shallow sleep. You open your eyes, and it is no different from keeping them shut. Pure blackness. But your body already knows. A new day, or rather, a new round of labor has begun. Cold is the second sensation, not the fresh coolness of morning, but a clammy, invasive chill that slips into everything. Covering you is a rough wool blanket, thin as a skin, clinging with bits of straw and a vague smell of mildew. It offers far more psychological comfort than actual warmth. You shift slightly, and the straw mattress beneath you rustles. A few mischievous stalks poke through your thin linen shift and prickle your skin. This is your bed. A pile of straw in the corner of the kitchen loft. You breathe out. In your imagination, it should be a cloud of white vapor. But in this pitch darkness, you can see nothing. You can only feel the warmth of your breath being swallowed almost instantly by the cold around you. Crowded into this little loft with you are two other kitchen maids. Their breathing rises and falls, threaded with the occasional murmur of dreams and the faint chatter of cold tea. This kind of shared sleeping space is standard for low-ranking servants in the Middle Ages. The only advantage of sleeping above the kitchen is the chance of stealing a trace of warmth from the chimney below. But even that meager heat was gone by midnight. That damned rooster crows again, this time shorter, more impatient. In an age without clocks, people's lives seem to be governed by sunrise and sunset. But for someone at the bottom of a manor household like you, work begins long before the first light. The kitchen fire must be burning before everyone else wakes. You sit up, your bare feet search down from the straw pallet the moment they touch the cold, rough wooden floorboards. A shock runs through your whole body and wakes you completely. You shiver, not just from the cold, but because your body already senses, with animal certainty, the exhaustion of the next dozen or more hours. Later generations reconstruct past lives through documents and archaeology. But there is one thing they can never truly recover: sensory memory. They can work out what parasites might have infested your straw mattress. Yet they can never truly feel that unending, bone-deep cold and damp. Perhaps that pressure on the senses was the truest ground tone of your life. You do not have time for self-pity. You are only a part set into motion by habit. Now you have to move. You grope your way down the crude wooden ladder into the kitchen. It is steep and slick, coated with a sticky film from years of smoke and grease. Barefoot, you step cautiously onto the freezing stone floor. Every step feels like walking on ice. The kitchen is colder than the loft and emptier too. Last night's dead fire has taken the final trace of warmth away, leaving behind only a great cold stone beast. The central hearth, your first task is to wake the beast. You kneel on the cold hearthstone and begin by scraping out the ashes from the night before with a small shovel. These ashes are not waste. They are valuable. The finer ash will be collected and sent to the wash house to be made into lye for cleaning greasy cloths. Wood ash or potash lye was one of the most important cleaning agents of the time. You see, medieval housewives had mastered recycling long before the modern age. Only their chemistry sounded more like grandmother's remedies. Once the hearth is cleared, the real skilled work begins. From a small leather pouch you take out your high technology, a flint, a short strip of iron, and a little wooden box. Inside is your tinder, and not just any flammable scrap will do. It is made from specially prepared fungus or charred linen, treated so that the faintest spark can catch. In your left hand, you hold the flint and a pinch of tinder. In your right, the iron. You adjust them to a delicate angle. Clack. You strike downward hard. No spark. You steady your breathing. Then strike again. Clack. This time a few weak sparks leap out, and one lands exactly on the tinder. It does not burst into flame at once. It is only a tiny red point, like a drowsy firefly in the dark. Now comes the crucial part. You place the precious glowing tinder into a small handful of dry straw and shavings. Bend close and begin to blow with all the gentleness you possess. Not too hard, or you will blow the spark out. Not too softly, or you will not feed it enough air. This is a memory the body knows better than language. The muscle memory carved into you by hundreds upon hundreds of failures and successes. Your cheeks tighten with concentration. Your eyes lock on that tiny red point at last. Under the steady current of your breath, it flares a little tongue of orange flame. You have done it. Quickly, you tuck the burning bundle into the little stack of kindling you prepared earlier. The fire spreads fast. Warmth and light push back the kitchen's cold and darkness inch by inch. The flames cast leaping shadows across your face. This is the first warmth you have felt today, and you made it with your own hands. The fire is up, but the next task is just as hard. You pick up 2 heavy wooden buckets. Push open the creaking back kitchen door and step into the still black yard. The wind cuts across your face like a blade. You have to fetch water from the well in the center of the courtyard. That well is the manor's lifeline. The kitchen, the wash house, the brew house, every place depends on it. You hook the bucket to the rope and turn the heavy windlass, listening to the wooden pail clatter downward until it ends with a dull splash. Then you crank the handle the other way and haul the full bucket back up. It is brutal work. The freezing water makes the bucket feel as heavy as stone. By the time you have raised 1 full pail, your arms are already starting to ache. You have to make 4 trips just to fill the kitchen's morning water cistern halfway. When you stagger back into the kitchen with the last bucket, your hands are red with cold, and your shoulders burn where the bucket rims have rubbed them raw. But now there is warmth in the kitchen. The fire is roaring. Steam is beginning to rise from the pot. You have made fire. You have carried water. These 2 most basic, most ancient elements form the foundation on which the manor's new day begins to turn. And the price of all of it is only this: the struggle of one nameless little maid for an hour before dawn. In the great pot over the fire, the water is beginning to bubble. You throw in a handful of oats and some crushed beans, then grab a few fistfuls of dried root vegetables from the sack nearby, and toss those in too. This is pottage, the mainstay of your diet, the most stable meal of your day. It will simmer from morning till evening, and at any moment you may ladle out a bowlful to fill your stomach. Sometimes, if the cook is in a good mood, she will throw in a few leftover meat bones from last night's lordly feast. That counts as an improvement. You stir the gray, sticky mass with a long wooden spoon. It smells of almost nothing, only a plain scent of grain and earth. This is your fuel, not your food. Its only function is to give you enough energy to get through the day's labor. Beside you on the work table lies another important task: preparing breakfast bread for the Lord's household. Not the dark, coarse bread you eat, mixed with bran and bean flour, but manchet bread baked from the finest, whitest flour. You knead the dough carefully. It is soft and elastic, a bitter contrast to the bowl of pottage in your hand. In the 14th century, the color of bread was the most visible badge of class. The more finely sifted the flour, the whiter the loaf. The whiter the loaf, the more of the grain had been wasted in refinement, and the more expensive it became. White bread is pure status. Every day you handle these foods of privilege, yet even a single stolen bite would be an unforgivable offense. You divide the dough into small portions, shape them into neat rounds, and set them on a floured board to rise. Later you will bake them into golden tender loaves in a small oven beside the fire. And your own breakfast will be a bowl of pottage from the big pot, and a piece of dry, hard black bread. Rising, lighting the fire, hauling water, cooking this chain of physical labor has already drained your strength. You are hungry, very hungry. You take up a bowl of warm pottage, lean against the wall, and gulp it down with a chunk of black bread hard enough to use as a weapon. It has almost no taste, but at least it is hot. It will give you enough strength for the next few hours of work. That is enough. Your eyes lift through the steam to the little pale dough rounds slowly rising for the Lord. They are white and soft, as though they belong to another world. And between you and that world lies a bowl of pottage you can never quite finish. When the first real streak of morning light finally reaches the high kitchen windows, the place is already transformed from your one-woman performance into a noisy, chaotic war. The kitchen has awakened. Cook Martha, a broad, powerfully built woman with a booming voice, is the supreme commander of this battlefield. She needs no weapon. Her shout, capable of cutting through every other sound, and the great wooden spoon she never sets down, are symbols of authority enough. Under her are her lieutenants, Roger, who tends the roasting spit all day until his face is red from the heat, and Agnes, who has an almost mystical gift for sauces and spices. Below them are the ordinary soldiers, servants like you, kitchen maids and scullery boys. Your work is the most basic, heaviest, dirtiest kind. Washing mountains of vegetables, plucking poultry, scaling fish, scrubbing pots and bowls and pans without end. Ellie, Martha's shout makes you jump. You hastily put down what you are holding. Those chickens for tonight's feast. Clean them now. Your task is to prepare several freshly slaughtered birds. You carry them to the wash area in the corner and begin to pluck them. Warm feathers, mixed with the smell of blood, cling to your hands and arms. It is tedious work, slow and dull, but it has to be done meticulously. Not a single downy feather can be left behind, because those birds may end up as elegant dishes on the Lord's table. As you work mechanically, pulling feathers one by one, you listen to the kitchen symphony. The cook is shouting at Roger about the heat of the roast. The steward rushes in with the lady's latest instructions for the evening menu. Add a dish of boar seasoned with costly spices. 2 scullery boys begin fighting over a bucket and are separated only after Martha cracks each of them on the head with her spoon. Steam, smoke, the mingled smells of food, the ring of metal, human shouting, the whole room is pressure and confusion. This is the everyday reality of a large manor kitchen. It is an independent kingdom governed by strict hierarchy, an efficient food factory, and you are the smallest screw in its machinery. Your work directly affects the quality of the final product, yet you will never receive praise for it. If the chicken skin is torn, you will be scolded. If the feathers are not plucked cleanly, you will be scolded. If you are too slow, you will still be scolded. At last you pull the final feather, rinse the naked bird clean, and hand it to the cook. She only glances at it and gives a vague grunt before turning at once to something else. No praise, but no rebuke either. For you, that is the best possible outcome this morning. Just when you think the whole day will pass as usual in heat, grease, and noise, an unexpected order breaks your rhythm. The lady's personal attendant appears at the kitchen door. A young woman always dressed in a clean, proper gown, with an air of arrogance about her. She pinches her nose and knits her brow, as if even the air in here were an insult. She gives the cook her message, then lets her gaze sweep across the kitchen maids standing with bowed heads. At last it lands on you. You, come with me. Her tone allows no refusal. Your heart leaps straight into your throat in the power structure of the manor. Being summoned directly by the lady is rare and dangerous. You have no idea what awaits you. You can only wipe your hands and follow her in anxious silence. For the first time, you step beyond the servants' quarters. You pass through long corridors hung with tapestries and arrive at the Lord and Lady's private chamber. The Solar. It bears that name because it is usually set on the south side of the building, where the light is best. The moment you step inside, you are surrounded by sensations utterly unlike the kitchen. It is warm, bright, quiet. The air carries a faint scent of lavender and beeswax. Thick rugs from Flanders cover the floor, soft underfoot. A small fireplace burns merrily by the wall. The windows are glazed with glass, not perfectly even, but smooth enough to let sunlight spill in unobstructed, lighting the dust motes dancing in the air. The lady sits in a carved wooden chair holding a garment, her brow furrowed. She looks young, yet there is an authority in her expression that feels innate. You do not dare meet her eyes. You look down at your own toes. Raise your head, she says. Her voice is gentler than you expected. You obey. She lifts the garment for you to see. It is a splendid outer gown of deep blue silk, its cuffs embroidered with intricate curling vines in gold thread. But at one sleeve seam, a small length of thread has snagged and broken, leaving a tiny flaw almost invisible to the eye. I hear your needlework is very good, the lady says. I am to wear this afternoon. Can you mend it so that no trace can be seen? You look at the tiny damage, and your heart hammers. This is both a tremendous opportunity and a terrible trap. Needlework is an essential skill for every woman of the time, but its meaning changes completely with class. For the lady, embroidery is an art of leisure, a display of virtue and refinement. For you, mending is a practical skill you depend on to live. Your fingers are roughened by years of hard labor, but from your mother, you inherited extraordinary skill with a needle. Yes, my lady, I think I can. Your voice shakes a little. Good. She hands you the gown and points to a small stool nearby. Mend it here. When you are done, I will have the steward give you a new pair of shoes. A new pair of shoes. The promise strikes you like lightning. The old leather shoes on your feet have lasted almost 2 years. The soles are nearly worn through. A new pair is a luxury beyond imagining, but at the same time, you know perfectly well that if you fail, the consequences may be far worse than a scolding. Damaging the lady's costly clothing is a serious dereliction. You sit on that stool as if on trial. The lady sits not far away, apparently turning the pages of a book, though you can feel her glance falling on you from time to time. You draw a deep breath and force your trembling hands to steady. From the sewing basket the attendant has handed you, you choose the finest needle and the closest matching silk. All your attention narrows to your fingertips and that tiny flaw. You thread the needle carefully and with stitches almost invisible, secure the broken thread and close the split seam. Your movements are gentle and precise. Sweat beads on your forehead, but you dare not wipe it away. A few minutes later, it is done. You lift the garment. The damaged place has vanished, as if it had never existed. Holding your breath, you present it to the lady. She takes it, lifts it to the light, and examines it for a long time. At last, a faint smile of satisfaction touches her face. Well done, Ellie. It is the first time she has said your name. Go to the steward for your shoes. Relief floods through you so completely, your strength nearly fails. You bow and withdraw in silence from that warm, bright room that somehow feels more oppressive than any kitchen. From the steward, you receive a new pair of shoes, flat-soled, made of soft, dark leather, sturdily constructed, without ornament. But for someone used to going barefoot or wearing broken shoes, they are an incomparable gift. You clutch them to your chest like treasure. When Martha sees you return with the new shoes, she only curls her lip and mutters something about a lucky little brat, but says no more. She assigns you a comparatively easy task, sorting vegetables out in the yard, as if granting, without saying so, a brief holiday. And so, for the first time today, you have the chance to sit in the sun. It is afternoon now. The best time of day. You carry a large wooden basin full of parsnips and carrots to be cleaned and sit in a corner behind the kitchen. Sunlight lies warm across your back, driving the morning's chill and weariness out of your body. You take off your ruined old shoes and carefully put on your new treasures. They are a little tight, but the leather wraps your feet in a feeling of warmth and solidity. You cannot help stretching your legs out into the sunlight and gently swinging your feet in their new shoes, the corners of your mouth lifting without your noticing. This is a moment that belongs only to you, and it will not last. No one is shouting in your ear, no smoke, no steam, no heavy buckets, no endless chicken feathers, only sunlight, a pair of new shoes, and a basin of vegetables waiting to be prepared. To you, this is happiness. In that age, the boundary between work and rest is blurred. There are no guaranteed breaks, certainly no weekends. Servants' rest comes only in the cracks between two jobs, or when, as now, one is assigned a task that can be done outdoors and with less urgency. This kind of informal rest depends entirely on the mood of one's superiors and the press of work. You lean against the warm stone wall, scraping peels slowly, luxuriating in the rare calm. You even allow yourself the extravagance of closing your eyes for a few minutes, feeling the red warmth of sunlight through your lids. You might think that medieval laborers worked without relief all year round. But in fact, when one counts all the religious festivals and saints' days, medieval people may have had more officially prescribed holidays each year than modern people do. That does not mean they had more leisure on working days. They labored much longer from before sunrise until after sunset, and at an intensity most modern people can scarcely imagine. But for you, such abstractions are far away. What you can grasp is only this immediate truth. The satisfaction of a new pair of shoes, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the blurred lowing of cattle in the distance. These tiny, trivial things are among the few luxuries in your poor life. It is precisely these little fleeting pleasures, like stars in the dark, that sustain you through one long, punishing day after another. They are your only weapons against numbness and despair. You scrape the last carrot, wash them all clean, and put them back into the wooden basin. Rest time is over. You rise, brush the dirt from your skirt, glance down at your new shoes, draw a deep breath, lift the basin, and walk back into the noisy battlefield that belongs to you. But this time, your step feels a little lighter. The afternoon usually passes to the gentle hum of spinning. After a simple midday meal, the work in the kitchen eases for a while. You and several other maids are gathered into a room in the manor set aside for textile work. There is no kitchen smoke here, no din, only spinning wheels and great heaps of raw wool, smelling strongly of sheep. Your task is to spin. It looks monotonous, but it requires great skill and patience. You sit at a hand-turned spinning wheel with your left hand. You draw out a small tuft of fibers from the carded wool. With your right, you turn the wheel's handle gently. As it spins, the loose fibers are magically stretched, aligned, twisted, and drawn together under your fingers until they become a strand of even, strong yarn winding onto the spindle. The thickness of the thread depends entirely on the speed and pressure with which your left hand draws the fibers. Faster makes it fine, slower makes it thick. Only long practice can teach the hand to keep it even and free of lumps. Beside you sits the oldest maid in the manor, old Bess. She is the most skilled spinner of all, producing fine, even thread used for the Lord's family's best garments. The yarn you spin is of middling quality and will mostly be woven into coarse clothes for servants or made into blankets. Textile work is one of the most important forms of women's labor in the Middle Ages, spanning every class. Noble women embroider with gold and silver thread as a pastime and a display of talent. But for women like you, textile work is plainly productive labor. Most of the cloth a household needs depends on the day-in, day-out spinning done by its women. All afternoon, the room is filled with the rhythmic hum of turning wheels. The women speak little, each is absorbed in her work, this repetitive, mechanical labor has a strange hypnotic effect. Your body works almost automatically, while your thoughts drift far away. You may think back to the splendid silk gown from the morning, imagining the lady wearing it to a feast. You may savor again the joy of your new shoes, wondering how to make them last longer. Or you may look at the yarn lengthening in your hand and imagine whose body it will one day clothe, whom it will warm against winter's cold. Your labor is woven into the collective life of the manor in just this way. In that nearly meditative state, time seems to pass a little faster. This monotonous work leaves your shoulders and wrists aching, but it also brings a peculiar calm. Here there are no sudden commands, no delicate tasks to complete in fear of failure. You need only repeat, repeat, repeat again. Your value is clearly objectified in the circles of yarn thickening on the spindle. It is a dull, passive sort of creation, yet in its own way, it gives you steadiness. You are making something useful. That is the clearest proof you exist when the light outside the window begins to soften toward evening. Martha's silhouette appears in the doorway. Spinning time is over. The storm before supper is about to break. Ellie, go to the garden and cut some sage and rosemary, and check how the parsley is doing. Her order pulls you once more from the quiet of the spinning room back into the orbit of the kitchen. Carrying a small basket, you cross the courtyard to the manor's herb garden. This little plot is another treasure house of the kitchen and one of your favorite places in the manor. Unlike the lady's ornamental rose garden, everything here exists for use. Neat rows of plants are laid out in tidy beds, and the air is layered with the scents of herbs, sharp, fresh, sweet, medicinal. You move among them with practiced ease, like a queen inspecting her own domain. Your knowledge does not come from books. It comes from daily observation, touch, smell, and the oral teaching of older servants. You know which thyme has the richest flavor for roasting meat, which mint leaves are youngest and best for drink, which patch of nettles must be avoided unless you want your skin stung into burning and itching. Following the cook's instructions, you gather enough sage and rosemary. These two herbs are stars of the medieval kitchen, everywhere and in everything. Then you inspect the parsley. Its leaves are green and healthy. You pull a few carrots as well, planning to take them back to the kitchen. The carrots in your hands are probably not what you imagine. They are not the orange kind familiar today, but purple, white, or yellow. Orange carrots were, in fact, a variety specially cultivated by the Dutch in the 17th century in honor of the House of Orange. Before that, carrots around the world came in many colors. But for you, this garden has another, more secret use. It is your private medicine chest. While no one is looking, you slip to a corner of the garden where a few marigolds are growing. You pick several vivid orange blossoms and hide them carefully in your apron pocket. You know that crushed marigold petals, applied to a wound, can help it heal and ward off infection. Yesterday, while carrying firewood, you scraped your calf. This will be just the thing in a world without modern medicine, and where seeing a doctor is ruinously expensive. A little herbal knowledge is an essential survival skill for common people. That knowledge is often linked to an old theory known as the doctrine of signatures. According to it, the outward appearance of a plant reveals its medicinal use. Walnuts resemble brains, so they are good for the mind. Lungwort resembles the lungs, so it is used for breathing ailments. Modern science would dismiss this as nonsense, of course, but your experience tells you marigold works, and that is enough. This hidden herbal knowledge is one of the few forms of personal power and agency available to you in a world where you can control almost nothing else. When you are hurt, you need not ask anyone for help. You need not risk rebuke by reporting it. You can quietly solve the problem on your own with your secret knowledge. It is a tiny, silent act of self-defense, even resistance. You fill your basket, then pinch off a few leaves of lemon balm and rub them between your fingers. Lifting them to your nose, you breathe in the fresh lemony scent, and it gives your spirit a little lift. You tuck those into your pocket too, meaning to steep them in water before bed. They say it helps one sleep more soundly. You leave the garden carrying not only the herbs needed for supper, but also a little private sense of safety. As you hurry across the courtyard with your basket of herbs, heading back toward the kitchen, you pass the Manor chapel. The last light of evening slants through its narrow stained glass windows and falls across the stone wall in mottled shards of color. The evening office has just ended. Inside, no one remains. There is only a kind of sacred stillness. Something inexpressible compels you. You glance around to make sure no one is watching, push open the heavy wooden door, and slip inside. The air in the chapel is cooler than outside, carrying the mingled scents of candle wax, old wood, and incense. Standing beneath the great crucifix, you feel very small. In the 14th century, religion is everywhere. It is not only faith, but the organizer and governor of daily life. The fixed hours of prayer divide the day into measured parts. The church bell is the community's metronome. From birth to marriage to death, every major point of life is witnessed and regulated by the church. You do not understand the complicated Latin prayers recited by the priest, nor the theological disputes over the Trinity. To you, God and the Virgin Mary are more like remote and powerful beings, before whom one must show sufficient reverence in order to obtain protection. You kneel awkwardly before the statue of the Virgin and make the sign of the cross. You do not recite any formal prayer. Instead, silently, in the plainest words, you begin an intensely practical prayer. Holy Mary, please, let me not break any plates at the feast tonight. Please let the cook be in a better mood and stop shouting at me. And please, let the cut on my leg heal quickly so the overseer does not notice. Oh, and please let my new shoes last for several years. Your prayer may be practical, even selfish, but whose prayers are truly noble? As you pray, your eye drifts to the altar. You know this place possesses a special right. In that era, there was an important legal principle called the right of sanctuary. If a person committed a crime, even murder, but managed to reach a church and touch the altar, secular law could not punish him at once. He could claim protection there, usually for 40 days. During that time, he might choose exile or negotiate some settlement with the victim's family. In a sense, the chapel door marks the boundary between two worlds: the world of divine authority and the world of royal authority. For you too, the chapel offers a kind of sanctuary, even if only psychological. Here, for a few minutes, you escape the noise and strain of the kitchen. This small patch of quiet is stolen from your labor. You lift your head and look at the Virgin's face, serene and sorrowful, and a thin thread of consolation rises within you. It feels for a moment as though your small, humble wishes have been heard. The church bell rings again, this time to signal that the evening feast is about to begin. You start violently. You know you cannot linger. Hurriedly you cross yourself once more, rise, and slip out of the chapel as quietly as a startled rabbit, throwing yourself back into the world that demands your endless labor. You do not know whether your prayer will do any good, but at least you have won yourself a few moments of peace. The instant you step back into the kitchen, it is as if you have been flung from a quiet harbor into the center of a storm. The last hour before supper is the kitchen's most frenzied, most chaotic moment of the day. It is no longer a place of cooking, but the logistical headquarters of an army about to march into battle, full of organized disorder and barely controlled tension. The air is thick with the scent of roasting meat, the bite of spices, the sweetness of boiling sauces, and human sweat. The hearth burns fiercely, throwing a red glow across the whole room. Roger, in charge of the roasting, is drenched in sweat as he turns a great spit bearing an entire boar. Its skin crackles in the fire, fat drips into the flames below, and sends up bursts of sparks. Before Agnes stand a dozen little bowls filled with powders and liquids of different colors. Like an alchemist, he is mixing elaborate sauces. Ellie. Water. Quick. That sauce is about to catch. Agnes's shrill cry sends you moving at once. You run to the water cistern, scoop up a large ladleful, dodge the obstacles littering the floor, and rush it to him. He grabs it, pours it into the pan, and stirs furiously. Your role in this confusion is that of a roving supply soldier. One moment you are passing a plate to one side of the kitchen. The next you are wiping up spilled broth on the other. Then you are sent to the cellar for a jar of mustard. You must see everywhere and hear everything, ready at all times to answer any call from any corner. Martha spins through the kitchen like a top, her shouting the soundtrack of the storm. Roger, any longer, and that pig will be charcoal. Take it off. Skim that soup properly. Do you want the master finding filth in his bowl? The platters. Who is polishing the silver platters for the feast? You are set to polishing the silver. With a soft cloth, dampened in fine ash and vinegar, you rub the heavy platters until they shine brightly enough to reflect your own smoke-smudged face. For the nobles in the hall, this feast will be a spectacle of the senses, a performance of status and sociability. They will never know that behind those few glittering hours lies a world of chaos, strain, and sweat. Every magnificent dish is produced under immense pressure by countless humble hands like yours, working swiftly and exactly. This splendor is built from endless, petty, greasy, even filthy details of labor. Every platter you polish, every ladle of water you carry, is an unseen brick in the great edifice. At last, the first course is ready to go out. The servants line up, each carrying platters and trays, preparing to enter the hall. Someone thrusts a basket of bread into your hands. You draw a breath and fall in at the end of the line, ready to step into that brilliantly lit world that feels utterly foreign to you. The storm center is about to shift from kitchen to hall. Carrying the bread basket, You follow the long procession of servants into the hall. A wave of heat hits you at once, mingled with voices, music, and the smell of food. The room is ablaze with light, torches on the walls and the mass of candles in the central chandeliers make the whole place bright as day. The long tables are draped in white cloth, set with shining silverware and glass drinking cups. The guests are already seated, dressed in silks and velvets of every color, talking and laughing loudly. The air is buoyant with cheer. At once you feel the order of rank in the room. The lord and the most honored guests sit on a slightly raised dais at one end of the hall, with splendid tapestries hanging behind them. The other guests sit along the sides of the long tables according to degree. And in the middle of the main table usually stands a large salt cellar. This is where the phrase "below the salt" comes from. Those seated above the salt, near the high table, are people of standing. Those below it are guests or retainers of lower status. That little vessel of salt is like an invisible Berlin Wall, clearly dividing two worlds. And you belong to neither. Like the other servants, you are part of the moving background of this scene. Your task is to remain quiet, move quickly, and attract as little notice as possible. You walk along the table, distributing bread from your basket to each guest. Your head stays lowered, your eyes remain on the guests' plates and your own hands, avoiding eye contact with anyone. The noise in the hall makes you a little dizzy. In one corner, a lutenist plays a lively tune. A few hunting dogs weave under the tables, hoping for scraps. The guests eat and drink heartily, while talking at great volume. They take food with their hands, using knives only from time to time. Forks are not yet common in England. They are seen mainly as the slightly effeminate utensils of Italians. Bones and scraps are casually dropped onto the rushes spread on the floor. You step up beside a baron flushed red with drink and move to offer him bread. Suddenly he turns and grabs your wrist. His grip is hard enough to hurt. "Hey, little thing," he says, leaning close. His breath reeks of wine. "What's your name?" Pretty eyes, your mind goes blank. Fear pours over you like freezing water. In a setting like this, you are both invisible and glaringly visible. As a servant, you are expected to move like a ghost, unnoticed. But as a young woman, you inevitably become prey to certain men's attention. This contradiction leaves you in a state of terrible vulnerability. You cannot resist, you cannot cry out. You cannot even let your face show offense. Any strong reaction might bring trouble, not only on yourself, but on your master's household as well. The only thing you can do is go rigid, lower your head, and pretend you do not understand. Fortunately, a lady seated beside the baron notices what is happening. She taps his arm lightly with her fan. "Dear heart, don't frighten the poor maid." "My cup is empty." Interrupted, the baron releases your wrist with irritation and turns to pour her wine. You move away at once, clutching the basket, slipping off like a bird released from a snare. His finger marks burn on your wrist. Your heart is pounding in your chest, but on your face you must keep the same humble, numb expression. You retreat to the doorway of the kitchen and lean against the cold stone wall, trying to steady your breathing. The hall's clamor continues, but for you, it already feels like something happening in another world. In those few seconds you understood, with brutal clarity, the nature of your place, an object that can be used, assessed, even harassed at will. Not a person, only a body in a maid's dress. After a while the steward notices you, frowns, and gestures sharply for you to get back to work. You draw another breath, lift the basket, and step once more into that glittering hall, beautiful and full of traps. At last the feast ends around midnight. The guests depart in noisy waves, drunk and satisfied. The hall is left with scraps, wreckage, and disorder. The candles have burned down to stubs. Grease has congealed on the tablecloths, The air is thick with the odd fermenting smell of wine, food, and human bodies. The rushes on the floor are mixed with bones, breadcrumbs, and broken nutshells. This is no longer a splendid banquet hall. It is the greasy ruin of a battlefield. And you and the remaining servants are the cleaners sent in afterward. Exhaustion crashes over you like a tide, but there can be no rest. The clearing must be finished tonight. With another maid, you begin gathering the tableware, silver platters, cups, knives, every piece smeared with grease, and scraps of food. You sort them into large wooden basins to carry back to the kitchen. The manor economy of the Middle Ages follows a simple principle. Nothing is wasted. The meat, bread, and sweets on the table that were barely touched will not be thrown away. They will be collected and distributed the next day to lower servants like you, or taken to the manor gate and given as alms to poorer beggars. It is thrift, certainly, but it is also another confirmation of hierarchy. The servant's food is the master's leftovers. You carry a basin of heavy, greasy dishes back to the kitchen, where matters are no better. Used pots and bowls and pans are piled up like hills. Waiting for you is another hard task. Washing? There is no hot water, no dish soap. Your cleaning agents are the same as mentioned before. Lye made from wood ash, along with sand and rough cloth. You place the plates into a large sink. Pour on cold water and lye. Then scrub hard with cloth dipped in sand. The sand scrapes away the hardened grease, though it leaves tiny scratches in the silver. No one cares your hands soak for hours in the cold, caustic lye water, itching and stinging. It is one of the common occupational afflictions of maidservants. You repeat the motions mechanically: scrub, rinse, scrub, rinse. Your mind has stopped thinking. You want only to finish and get back to your cold straw pallet. As you wash, your eyes sometimes drift up to the high windows of the kitchen. Their glazing is not made from one smooth sheet of glass, but from small circular panes produced by the crown glass method and set together. At the center of each pane is a thick, bulging spot called a bullseye, the place where the glass was detached. Through such uneven glass, the night outside appears distorted and blurred. At last you wash the final batch of platters, dry them, and return them to the rack. Then you and the others begin cleaning the floor. You carry bucket after bucket of water and splash it onto the stones. Then sweep the filthy mixture of food scraps and dirty water out into the drain beyond the door. By the time everything is finally finished, the eastern sky has already begun to pale with a thin, gray-blue light. The whole kitchen has returned to the cold silence it had after the fire died the night before. You feel as if your bones are falling apart. Every movement makes your muscles cry out, dragging legs that feel as heavy as chains. You and the other utterly spent maids support one another as you make your way toward the rickety ladder to the loft. In a few hours, a new day will begin the same way all over again. This endless cycle, repeated without conclusion, is the truest and heaviest part of your life. At last you climb back into the little loft, familiar with its smells of hay and mildew. In the dark, you find your straw pallet and collapse onto it, too tired even to remove your outer clothes. But sleep does not come immediately. The girls' talk begins. This is the only time of day that belongs wholly to you, unsupervised by anyone. "God, my feet are about to fall off," says a voice in the dark, Mary, who was washing dishes with you. "My back's about to break too," another voice answers. "That idiot Roger nearly splashed roasting grease all over me." Complaining is the eternal theme of these whispered midnight conversations. In low voices you trade the day's labor, grievances, and bits of gossip. Who got shouted at by the cook? Who secretly tucked away a piece of bread? What made the steward lose his temper today? These petty unimportant scraps of information make up your tiny underground social network. Ellie, Mary, whispers, shuffling closer to you. I saw that Baron in red grab your hand. Are you all right? You shake your head, not wanting to say much, but the concern in her voice sends a little thread of warmth through your chilled heart. Another girl, Annie, fishes a little bundle wrapped in cloth from under her mattress. She unfolds it carefully, and a sweet smell spreads through the dark. A small piece of almond confection, pilfered from the feast. Quick, a little each, don't let anyone see. In that age, servants taking food or small things from their masters was extremely common. In many cases, it was treated as an unofficial benefit, an unspoken custom. So long as it was not excessive, masters often turned a blind eye. For you, it is not only about satisfying hunger, it is also a tiny act of resistance, a form of psychological compensation. You receive a little piece of almond sweet and put it into your mouth. The rich, almost cloying sweetness melts over your tongue. It is the first truly delicious thing you have tasted all day. In the dark, you share this small illicit sweetness, and everyone smiles. Then you remember your shoes, you take them from your arms and pass them over for Mary and Annie to feel in the dark. Their fingers touch the soft leather, and they let out muffled little gasps of envy and admiration. Beautiful Ellie. Did the lady reward you with them? You're so lucky. You pull the shoes back into your arms, filled with a quiet little pride. In this candleless world that belongs only to you, you are, for a brief time, freed from the identities of the day. You are not servants now. You are simply a group of young girls who complain, envy, share secrets, and are genuinely happy for a new pair of shoes. This sisterhood, formed spontaneously in the loft, is the only fortress you have against the cold, hierarchical world outside. Here you use complaint to dissolve pain, sharing to create bonds, and these tiny common secrets to affirm one another's existence and worth. Gradually, the voices grow quieter, replaced by crushing fatigue. One by one, the girls fall asleep, and only the soft rhythm of breathing remains. You hold your new shoes and listen to the wind outside, feeling your own eyelids grow heavier and heavier. Just before sleep takes you, one thought jolts through your mind. There is still one thing you have not done. Something very important and remembered only by you. You start awake from the edge of sleep, heart stumbling in your chest. The fire, you forgot to bank the kitchen fire. This is no small matter. In an age built of wood and thatch, fire safety is of the highest importance. Every night, extinguishing or properly covering every source of flame is a crucial safety measure. You do not dare delay another second. You climb off the pallet at once, creep down the ladder, and return to the cold, silent kitchen. The fire in the hearth is very weak now, only a few red embers flickering in the dark. You go to the hearth, take up the heavy metal cover kept for this purpose, and place it carefully over the embers, cutting off the air. That way the fire will not flare again in the night, and a little live heat will remain, making it slightly easier to relight in the morning. When you have done this, you let out a breath and turn to leave. Then your eye catches a pottery jar on the shelf beside you. The kitchen's honey jar. Honey is an extremely precious sweetener in this period, far more common than sugar, and valuable medicinally as well for wounds, for coughs. Marta guards that jar as if it were her own eye. The kitchen is utterly silent, only you are here, and suddenly a powerful desire seizes you. You hesitate for a moment, inwardly fighting a small, silent battle. The church tells you greed and theft are sins, but your body, after a whole day of labor and humiliation, longs for a little extra sweetness, a sweetness forbidden. In the end, desire wins. You glance all around to make sure no one is about to appear, rise onto your toes, and gently lift the lid of the jar. A rich sweetness, floral and thick, rises up at once. You dip your forefinger quickly into the sticky honey, take only a little, and put it straight into your mouth. The pure, intense sweetness explodes across your tongue. It is more direct than the almond sweet, and more sinful. This is a private indulgence that belongs only to you. You replace the lid at once, and lick your finger clean, as if nothing had happened. This tiny secret transgression is the last thing you do today. For nearly every moment of the day, your actions have been passive. You have carried out other people's commands, lighting the fire, fetching water, cooking, mending, spinning, serving. You are a gear set in motion by others, but these last two acts returning responsibly to secure the fire, and then indulgently stealing a taste of honey, are entirely your own choices. One is responsibility toward the household, the other is indulgence toward the self. They seem contradictory, but together they form a fuller image of you as a human being. In a society rigidly governed by religious doctrine, how does an illiterate commoner find balance between the grand narratives of sin and punishment, and the concrete needs and desires of daily life? Perhaps what you do in this moment is one answer. In your own way, you have conducted a small practical negotiation between sacred law and worldly desire. With the taste of honey still on your tongue, mixed with a little guilt and a little pleasure, you climb the ladder to the loft one last time. This time, you really may sleep. You lie down again on your straw pallet. Now, exhaustion is like a great feather quilt, crushing and covering you completely. You do not even have the strength to think. Your body is like a broken ship that has sailed through storm all day and finally reached a harbor poor and rough, but calm enough. Your consciousness begins to blur and loosen. The day's sensory memories flicker chaotically across your fading mind like lantern slides, overlapping one another. You seem to feel again the cold of the floor at dawn, and later the warmth of the sun on your back. To smell the smoke of kindling, the rich scorch of roasting meat in the kitchen, the fragrance of the herb garden, and the sour wine breath from the feast. To hear the rooster's cry, Martha's shout, the hum of spinning wheels, the uproar in the hall, and the girls whispering in the loft. To taste the blandness of the same eternal bowl of pottage, and the sinful sweetness of that final drop of honey. On your wrist, it seems, there still lingers the ache of being gripped. On your feet, the strange little tightness of your new shoes still remains. These fragmentary sensations are like shells left on a beach when the tide has gone out, stripped of the logical thread that once bound them together. They no longer form a coherent story, only pure bodily traces. Your breathing grows long and even, joining the breathing of the other girls in the loft. You, Ellie, an unnamed maid in a 14th century manor, your day is over. Your story, your exhaustion, your little joys and fears will dissolve into the thick night. You are only one among countless silent lives in history, a grain of sand, a drop of water. And yet it is precisely those countless grains and drops that together formed the mighty river of history we look back on today. Good night.